I think in most education programs, students do some type of what people would call field experiences. The problem was, and this is what my experience was when I first came here before I did the service learning study group, is that often those field experiences are seen as something very separate from their coursework. It's kind of like, here's the course, and you're going to go out and you're going to do 10 or 15 hours in a school, but there's sort of minimal connection between what they might see or experience out there and what's going on in the class. So in my own experience with really getting into service learning and community-based research is the idea of really making the link between the community experience and the classroom experience as explicit and as full as possible.
We required 20 hours at a school. We have a choice between the Children's Center here on campus, a couple different elementary schools in the Carlisle School District, or one of the middle schools, Lamberton Middle School. They have a homework help after school that you can go help with. I worked at Hamilton Elementary with a 4th grade class. I worked a lot of one-on-one with an English as a secondary language student, a foreign student who was struggling learning English.
It's an opportunity for our students, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, to meet with Dickinson College students and they serve as tutors and as mentors to our children. They come twice a week right after school from about 2:30 until about 3:30. They meet in the library. We have a teacher who supervises from our staff, but then those tutors will match up with our children who come in and asking for certain kind of help. They'll sit with them, they'll work on any specific assignments they have.
What it does give my students, which I hope they will take with them as they go through the ed program, is the beginning of an understanding of, one, kind of how schools work as they go out and about, but especially, I always use the phrase, what it means to educate all students in this country. Like we educate everybody. And when you're coming in as an 18-year-old, sort of your conception of all students is just much more limited by your experience. And so when they start talking about a student who has, really profound autism, or a student who is, maybe bipolar but can't take their bipolar medication because it interferes with their, ADHD medication or with something else, and they're sitting in a public school classroom, along with the student who we have a student who goes to homework help at Lamberton who's homeless, coming out of the shelter. So they really, I think, begin to get, in a way that I simply could never in a formal college, up on the 3rd floor of Bosler, get across to them in the same way, the diversity, the complexity of what's really going on.
It really helped me learn. We looked in class a lot about the diversity of education and that diversity of students in the classroom and things. It really helped me to learn and experience it hands-on, working with somebody who had moved to this country and was really struggling with the language. You can read in a textbook how students will get frustrated or things like that, but it's really a different experience to see it hands-on and really see the student struggle with things and become frustrated.
I've always tried to approach my classes from sort of a community of learners perspective, kind of we're in this together. We have a lot to share with each other. But what I really try to tell my students is, I come to the class as your teacher. I bring with me, 11 years of public school teaching experience and a doctorate in education and experience and knowledge that I'm probably the only one in this room that can provide, that I can give this. But each of you, come to this experience with your own I never went to a private school. I never went to an urban school. I never was homeschooled. I mean, there are lots of things that I never had that some of you had that you need to bring to the table. And the best piece of that is what you see out in the field. So, when you go to Lamberton and you have that experience with a student that might perfectly capture the very thing that we're talking about in class, I'm absolutely counting on you to, in that moment, become the expert on this thing that we're talking about, because you have the thing that just happened yesterday that you can bring in and talk about.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. Every Friday we set aside time to talk about our experiences, what's been going well, what hasn't, what worked, what have been teachers been doing, how's your experience going. And we can hear from other students and hear what they're doing and compare it with what you're doing. And even when we learn about things in class, sometimes somebody will raise their hand and say, oh, I saw this happen last week in the classroom that I'm observing. And it's really a good way to incorporate what you're doing with what you're learning in class and just put it all together.
Teachers, or most teachers to be, were probably good students themselves, and so they don't necessarily understand the other side. The many students who school is not a priority, school does not come easy, that need this extra attention, and so I think it is beneficial for those students, especially from that standpoint for their future, to see the other side, so that if they do go into education, they see the other side, so they know they need to plan to reach all the students, because they're not all successful,
Not all academic.
academically driven students. That just is not the case.
It really confirmed maybe wanting to be a teacher, because when we would get through material and she would succeed, and you could just see the glow on her face of being able, wow, I accomplished this, I learned this, I can do this now. And I just really like that feeling of seeing somebody succeed and knowing that you helped them through that.
You ask about the impact, and I saved this little letter because this particular student was here at Lamberton for 3 years, and she's Chinese, struggled with the language a bit. But I took her with me one time when we addressed the class, and she had written something that she wanted to say to them. She gave it to me afterwards. She didn't read from it, she had memorized it. But she talked about how hard it was for her to learn English, and maybe other students too. So we need someone to help us do our homework, study for tests and quizzes. She said that she's been going since she was in 6th grade. And what she said was, because of the homework help and college students, which will be you guys this year, she said, a lot of Lamberton students learn more, understand our homework, don't have to worry about tests and quizzes, don't have to spend a lot of time at home doing something we don't understand, and we will be happier. So she was really a great person to bring and sort of affirm to the new recruits that their work was going to be important.
The goal of a school, mission of a school, is every kid succeeds. Well, this allows some of those who may not have to succeed. I mean, truly, there's kids who do their homework because they're in homework or study for a test. I mean, would you not agree that there's kids every year who pass? I mean, not that there aren't other things we do, but this program allows some of those kids, this partnership allows some of our students to succeed.
You can learn through a textbook and learn so much, but again, it's just reading a textbook. But going out and experiencing the things and actually using the techniques you're using in class or seeing them firsthand it really helps you to understand them and experience them and really know what you're learning about in class. Like I said, with the student I worked with, you could really see the frustration she was going through, but at the same time, how cool it was to see her joy when she got through something.
Hopefully this plants a seed in their mind as young adults then, to the communities that they're going to return to, that there are lots of ways they can touch other kids and be mentors for them.
The one way, too, that I would say, just as far as sort of a pedagogical issue and how it's changed me, I do have a lot of high school teaching experience, but I've been out of the classroom 10 years. I left in '98. So it's also a really good way for me to stay in very close contact with what are the major issues on the minds of practicing teachers in the field today. I have 24 students in Ed Psych this semester, so when I look at those 24 topics, teacher selected, it's also a way to really keep me just really in touch with what practicing teachers are struggling with. And that wasn't something I necessarily conceptualized at the time that I came up with the idea, but has proven to be helpful to me.